Ladies and gentlemen, another CIRF report, June 25th through July 1st, 2020. No eclipse this time. That'll be in the next CIRF report. For now, we have all sorts of other energies to report. Man, it's going to be another just crazy week full of different energies. We got the astrology all over the place. We've got the I-Ching that's showing us oppression. By the way, if you saw yesterday's pre-game show, pre-game surf, if you will, I was showing you yesterday's Dreambot run, which was ball and chain, and that has everything to do with oppression. So things like, well, let's start with the retrogrades. By the way, we have Venus going direct, so we're going from 6 retrogrades down to 5. Mars is going into Aries. We got a grand air trine, which is ironic because Mercury is a little bit weakened with the Mercury combust that's within 8 degrees of the sun. We have all that to talk about as well as some more. So for the astrology, really focused on dulled mental acuity, but we also have Mars breaking out of its oppression that we'll talk about as well. We have the Dreambot today, which is more about less about ball and chain, more about moving forward fast. So that's a pretty good transition. So instead of being held down, the collective is moving forward, at least today. But yesterday it was ball and chain. So the overlap with this whole influence is it's the continuum. It's moving forward / being held back. And that can feel like the I-Ching 47 oppression. So let's get started in the Dreambot next. All right, here we go. Let's not taking any prisoners today. We're moving right through this. Hopefully I have no wasted words here. So in today's run is pretty convoluted. You have all the red arrows is the major theme here. That's flying fast and moving forward. Everything in there is lightning fast, accelerating. Then the blue arrows is the opposite. I probably should have changed those colors around, but these are things that slow you down. The police, the river, and I'm not anti-police, just so you know. But the word slot and caught and dogs and these sorts of things. And then, communicating, it's another small meme. But I think the major part of this meme is flying fast and forward. And that's a huge progression from yesterday, which was about ball and chain. I'm not going to mess with that. If you want to look at yesterday's video, go do so. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the astrology because that's where the bulk of the meat is. For example, you can see up there that, as I get my pointer out, that Mars is going into Aries about halfway through our week. And we also have Venus going direct. There, I got my pointer out now. We're in the last stages of this. By the way, all these green alignments here are sextiles. So there's a lot of opportunities coming this week. That sounds pretty positive. But wait until you see the solution slide before you judge, oh, this is a really great thing. Yeah, that's the silver lining part to this, but it may not feel like that as we're going through here. Let's go ahead and get started. First of all, on Thursday, the 25th, Venus, early in the evening, Central Time, about 2 a.m., going direct. And at the same time, square to the moon, but easy energy over to Saturn. Can easily think about and contemplate maybe old contracts, if contracts are the kind of the rule here. Saturn in retrograde, so older contracts and kind of being honest with those and looking at those from a very rational place, Gemini. But that's not the biggest news here. I mean, that's pretty big. Venus finally going direct now. And but Mercury is getting close to the sun. We're within 8 degrees now, so that means Mercury is combust. It's for the entire week plus some. Anytime Mercury is conjunct with the sun, and conjunct in this case means 8 degrees, that's what we call combust. And when it's combust, it kind of dulls whatever planet that is. In this case, the thinking, the rational, but it's in Cancer and it's in retrograde. So past thoughts about nurturing and protecting and maternal things, those kinds of thoughts are being dulled right now. And so maybe feeling a little bit trapped, if you will. There's like no options because I don't have my mental acuity. It can feel a little bit helpless until, by the way, until Cazimi. And Cazimi's within, when Mercury gets within 17 minutes. And that's on the 30th. It's a little bit later. But until then, everything changes with Mercury on that day. We'll get to that later. But for now, think about your thoughts are a little bit dimmed. They're a little bit less reliable, as if the retrograde wasn't enough to put some pressure on those thoughts, and Cancer and water to put pressure on those thoughts. Now we have combust. So that's going to be the whole week here. On Friday the 26th, we have opportunities are being seeded because you can see Mercury now and the Sun with Uranus, so an opportunity with change and thoughts and ego. But we also have these three, and it's mainly, well, it's Neptune and Mars. Even though they are no longer conjunct together, they are both making sextiles, multiple sextiles here, and that represents more opportunities. And so just to make it pretty easy, I'm just going to say that opportunities are being seeded with change and with, old ways of governance. And then emotions are easily flowing. If you notice that the moon in Virgo, so kind of detail-oriented emotions, or maybe OCD emotions, if there is such a thing, are easy over to more change and to the change and transformation, reverse transformation of government. I'm whipping through here, so if you've got questions, comment those below, and I'll hopefully answer those later. We're going to put our bulk of our time in the solution slide. But look at Saturday. This is a pretty special day. We've got a grand trine. It starts actually with the moon in Virgo actually starts this grand trine. You can see this is 8:45, and I chose that time because this is going to be our solution slide. Mars going into Aries. I think that's going to be a huge shift in energy. And so that's why I put that, whatever influence that is, which we'll get to in here in a second, is going to represent the solution slide. In other words, we're going to paste this into the later slide so we can get the sidereal equivalent and the rave mandala. But for now, we have a grand air trine. So Saturn in Aquarius, Moon in Libra, and Venus in Gemini. And it's ironic because air trine is mental and logic, and it should be easy. However, we've got this irony here where not only does part of this, that one of the tip of the grand trine, the moon, is squared off to our mental capacity, which is dimmed right now. So we've got a double whammy, a triple whammy. If you got, how about quadruple? Mercury retrograde in Cancer, Mercury retrograde in Cancer combust with the Sun squared to the moon. We've got ourselves an extra dim sort of mental acuity here. But nonetheless, you still have a grand air trine. It just may not be in the forefront of your conscious mind. There's going to be insights here, but there's going to be even more insights when we get to the 30th. So hold on here. I think this is just going to feel clear. It might feel a little bit distant, observational. I think this is what this air trine is going to be influencing us with. They're going to be just kind of more distant and observant. Yeah, it's going to be an ability to be more dissociated, but still, man, I don't know. A lot of our Aquarians are a little bit distant and not engaged. Hopefully you can stay engaged, but we'll get to the solution slide later. Getting ahead of myself. I do want to cover this Mars going into Aries, and Mars rules Aries, obviously. And so we got the warrior going into a fire sign. Aries can tend to be very selfish, but impulsive and get it done kind of an attitude. And Mars coming from Pisces was like the martyr in water and very slow. And if you can imagine running in water, it doesn't work too well. It takes a lot of effort. So all this effort that Mars was putting forth was really wasting a lot of energy if you were putting a lot of energy into that fighting and stuff. But now the fighting becomes easy. The yang becomes on fire. The yang has that energy. It doesn't have a lot of hurdles pushing it back. So my point here is that it's not like Mars couldn't do anything in Pisces, but now that he's free, he's home, he's in a home that he's comfortable with, Aries, he's going to look back and say, wow, was I oppressed? That's a fact. And that's why I think this energy perfectly matches the I-Ching. But only in hindsight. Maybe not in hindsight. Maybe you guys already feel this, being held back, being oppressed. Maybe it's about having to stay home. Maybe it's about having to wear a mask or all these other laws and extra laws, even more laws. Why does the government always seem to grow with more regulations? That's the kind of idea here. Not that Mars has anything to do with laws, but it's the oppression. It's the apparent oppression. And that is an influence. It's not the absolute. It's not the truth. It's not a fact. It's a feeling. And so anyway, I think that's one of the major feelings of this week. And that's why I'm honing in on it. Again, going into our solution slide. So now we have Venus with easy energy. You can see a lot of things have fallen away. This moon is progressing nicely. So that square on Mercury starts going away. Yes, Mars now in Aries with opportunities. So, I mean, not a lot of change here. It's just easy energy with harmony and rational beauty, if there is such a thing. Making sense of beauty. The different ways you can do that. Now, on Monday, we have a balanced Libra emotions. So balanced is because Libra is about balance. But unfortunately, I put these in quotes. The balance, the quote unquote balanced emotions may not be very balanced. It's what's the perceived of the emotional body. Or if you're a Libras aren't really concerned about what's true to them. They're more acting on what they perceive is balanced, what they perceive is justified. And that can be really distorted. So this is going to be distorted here too with all these squares. And so emotional obstacles is, not being able to participate emotionally with the reverse transformation of governance and laws. Instead, we have a warrior going into Aries with opportunities of the same, but emotionally distant from it. So that can feel probably maybe a little isolated that day, and that's Monday. But we do, again, still have all these opportunities here. So I'm not going to back down from that. And we'll get to those opportunities when we get to the solution slide. This is a big day on Tuesday, the 30th, because Mercury goes Cazimi within 16 minutes of the sun. That's from Central Time, 5:22 p.m. to 2 a.m. or 2:10 a.m. And so in that period, on the evening of the 30th, you're going to have reflective thoughts. That's going to be for the retrograde, Mercury retrograde. But now all of a sudden what was dim actually becomes one with the sun. So we have kind of temporarily one entity with the sun. It's not being burned out. It's being shown brightly. And with that are the thoughts. So it's going to be reflective thoughts, retrograde, in Cancer. So nurturing, home, protecting yourself. And by the way, if I have to be protecting myself, which is something that Cancers typically do, it has to have some sort of oppression. You have to have some sort of boundary inclusion. So there's another source of oppression, but that's going to only probably be felt mostly on Tuesday evening, and maybe even in your dreams, you might get some picked up some of this oppression or protection or what have you. All right. And then on Wednesday, after Mercury goes past the sun, remember Mercury going the opposite direction the sun does right now, Mercury picks up a square over to Mars. Uh-oh, that's not good. And conjunct with the sun still, but outside of the Cazimi. Now we're back to combust on the up to about 8 degrees on the other side. And so now Mercury is dimmed again. So thinking about self is not your strong suit at this point, and it's conflicted with, so ego thoughts are conflicted with Mars in egotistical Aries. So we basically have fighting against others that are maybe like me, or maybe I'm fighting myself because I've got self over here with the sun conjunct with Mercury, and I'm squared over to my yang side of me in a very selfish, ardent, passionate sort of sector of the zodiac, which is Aries. And so it's just obstacles everywhere. I'm fighting everything. So if we can get away from ego, that'd be great on this day. It's ego versus ego, basically. And that's Wednesday, the 1st. Welcome to July. Still all those opportunities there, and Moon actually adds some more opportunities on July 1st. We're just, at this point, just days away from a lunar eclipse, last of 3 eclipses. So next CIRF report, we're going to see that. All right, let's get rid of our highlighter and let's look at the I-Ching reading. This is our influence, hexagram 47. You've already seen it from the last video. Oppression, lake over water. So hard times can shrivel our spirits and give rise to a multitude of crows in the form of troublesome worries. Times of great loss or personal failure can break some people, but the strong of heart are able to bend with their fate. During hard times, it is especially essential to tap that wellspring of human endurance, hope. Now, as you can see, there was several instances in our astrology where it did look like oppression. Now, here's the question. Is this just for the first half of the week or for the whole time? And I would say just from the Mercury side of things, other than the 30th, it's generally the whole time, because we've got the retrograde Cancer and combust Mercury. As for our failures, as hard as they may be able to accept, they can open our eyes, reawakening a clarity of vision only known by those who have risked and tasted disappointment. This is kind of getting into our solution, but we have to taste this disappointment. If there's something coming down the line, we can't predict actual events, but as hardships come, this is what we're talking about. It's kind of taking maybe 2 steps backward, if you will, during this time. For those who dare to live fully and completely, failure, the final taboo in modern society, is but one part of the inevitable cycle of life's ups and downs. To never fail is to fail in the biggest way. To avoid risking altogether, one will always fall short of what might have been. Now, we did have line 3. What does that mean? Well, indecision in times of adversity only brings more misfortune. So we already have our task. Don't be indecisive. And that is not on the solution slide because this is still just the influence. But just remember, if you're an indecisive person in this coming week, work to not be indecisive. Okay, and we'll show you a little bit more about how to do that in the solution slide. Life's gentle prodding whittles away the unnecessary until only what is necessary remains. You might feel a little bit of loss this week. So let's keep on going. Adaption reveals how oppression out there acts as a mechanism to unleash your capabilities in here. To measure success only by outward accomplishment, you may fail to see how adversity pushes you back to discover your real capabilities. This is about honing. And if you want to put it on a figure out there in the sky, it'd be Saturn. It sounds a lot like Saturn. Oppression pushes back against you and has a way of whittling away the unnecessary that leads to exhaustion until only the necessary remains. And here's our last little bit. To believe that life is working against you will lead to exhaustion and manipulation. Maybe those words called this too shall pass may be a good phrase for you this week if you're feeling this big influence of oppression. All right, that's the nuts and bolts, okay, of our summary. It's not necessarily just the oppression. There is a movement forward. Maybe that's our desire to move forward, but there's also clearly a sense of being held back from where we want to go. All right, after this, we get to the solution next. If you're feeling very oppressed and your mental health is at stake, go to intervention.com, sign up for an appointment, and we'll help you through those hard times. Now, here's the solution. We start with our putting the I-Ching in the change line 3. We get hexagram 28. This is excessive pressure, otherwise known as critical mass. Now, as I read this, realize that as above, so below. So this can be both about a collective influence, but also the micro influence, which you're feeling inside at an individual level. Consider that both of them might be true. Here we go. Something is about to collapse. A great pressure is causing an imbalance that needs correction. If the dam is about to burst, moving out of the way is your first priority. That, my friends, sounds like a solution. According to the I-Ching, your first solution is get out of the way as things collapsing or moving or, shit hitting the fan. Okay. If the dam is about, I already read that. Likewise, if you are in an old mine shaft and feel the earth begin to tremble, it is time for quick, instinctive action and nimble footwork. It's not a time to be thinking. Remember, Mercury, your rational ability is slowed and dulled in this time. It's about instinction. It's about instinctiveness. It's not about extinction. Hopefully not. All right, let's move on. When the roof is collapsing, run first and choose your destination later. Guys and gals, the roof might be collapsing both metaphorically and literally, so it's time to move fast. Ask questions later. Mars and Aries, so the second half of this week actually help you because Aries is very agile and impulsive. Extraordinary times bring out the best and worst in people. When a great weight is upon your world, powerful movements present opportunities to make great gains because everything is in a state of flux. According to Rahm Emanuel, never let a great crisis go to waste. Maybe we can take that lesson too. Don't let it go to waste. This may be the moment you have been waiting for. Although the current challenge may seem to be more than you can handle, remember that a flood usually reaches its high mark only for a few brief moments before it begins to subside. Then again, we're back to this, and this too shall pass. But if you can just hang in there for a while, be agile, be adaptable, you'll be good. Here's what the Tao Kuo demonstrates how protecting a weak foundation or outworn idea is no match for the power of nature to bring it down. What that's saying is, if you're building an illusion off of nothing, that's what the deep state loves to do all the time, it is doomed. this week, it's doomed, right? So natural action can only manifest when you eliminate your sense of right and wrong, good and bad. Nature, in its creative form, explores diversity by bringing opposites together. All right, enough of that. This is the upside down because I had to fit it into the sidereal chart, or the multi-zodiac chart. And we have, remember the Mars on this chart, which was the 30th, was actually reversed. It was upside down. But in accordance with Sidereal Astrology, we're looking at Mars right on the cusp, moving into Aries. That's hexagram 25 in the Rave Mandala. We'll get to that next. And it's also Sidereal Pisces as our solution. So let's get right to it. Let's read about the Rave Mandala, Gate 25. The innocence is tested in the fire of competitive energy. Despite the outward appearances, the true competition is whether the self can maintain its innocence despite circumstances. Look at the direct overlap here. It's, can you maintain your innocence? Can you maintain your sense of self through the disasters that might be coming, through the heartache that might be coming, through the collapsing that might be coming? Despite the outward appearances, the true competition is whether the self can maintain its innocence despite circumstances. This is the gate of the spiritual warrior, the shaman, the priestess. That, my friends, sounds like Pisces, and that's our Pisces solution, by the way. It is the potential to love existence without discrimination. That's an important one. Loving all existence, not just the good times, but the bad times too. Maybe, by the way, maybe the collapsing that is mentioning here, the collapse of the illusion that the deep state had created, huh? Maybe, hopefully. Can I have a standing ovation? Mystical potential of this love is transcendent and universal. The spirit is always being tested. This is the gate of scars, of the potential to be wounded. People might be wounded even when it's just the illusion that's collapsing, and maybe the veil is collapsing. People still going to be traumatized because it's an adaptation process. And when we see what's really happening in this world, some people are going to be terrified. Some people are going to be going in shock. The spirit can be broken, but triumph and survival enrich the spirit and result in the wonder of being. So your desire and your appreciation of being alive at this time is going to be warranted, especially in hindsight. Now, as we go back to, you look at this, it's on the first line. It's on the very first part of this hexagram or this gate. So we're looking at line 1, and that is selflessness. Selflessness. That's the opposite of Aries. Motiveless action. That's the opposite of Aries. The universalization of activity, psychic attunement that is its own reward, the potential for centering through attunement to challenges. Now that's very Aries there, the potential for centering through attunement to challenges. It's the combination. It's the perfect combination. If you see that Aries influence right on the cusp and the Pisces solution. So it's all there. Now here's the downside, Mercury in decrement, a tendency to publicize one's selflessness. So don't do that. Don't advertise your what do you call it? Your goodwill, your volunteering, your, I have a word for that, but I can't remember. The insecurity of the self manifested in times of challenge. So the insecurity of self. All right. That's the downside there. All right. Now let's get to the final summary slide, folks. And what you can see, this is the influence. Hurdles, people moving forward fast. It's not a race. That's not what the point of this is. It's just, we're all going to have to be facing hurdles, and we're going to have to be slowing down to speed up. So it's either going forward or held back. It's a continuum influence, all right? Part of that might feel like oppression. Now, here's the overall summary slide. We have the overlap with all these different circles, one of them being the solution I-Ching. Excessive pressure, quick instinctive action, nimble footwork, being adaptable. For the Rave mandala was where Mars is going to Aries is 25, gate 25, spirit of the self, the potential to love existence without discrimination. It's not being so concerned about just the good stuff. And then sidereal, what I did was I got rid of the idealistic because I don't think that's going to help us here. I've moved idealism down to avoidance, and I put up transcendence. Be transcendent, that's very Pisces. Be spiritual, psychic, awareness, togetherness, etc. But avoid idealism, avoid escapism. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't be self-sacrificing. We're not in that, especially the second half of the week. So the overall triangulation is that I expect us all to be tested, maybe even wounded, maybe psychologically wounded, maybe physically wounded. Hopefully not. I hope to be wrong. Be nimble and adaptable to all this. This is our biggest test, or this is our big test. I mean, not biggest test, but move out of the way, but don't escape. Love existence without discrimination. And sorry for the lawnmower. Move out of the way, but don't escape. Loving existence without discrimination. The mystical potential of this love is transcendent and universal. Natural action is better than right, wrong, good, bad, or idealism. Bring opposites together. Watch for and avoid cognitive dissonance. What cognitive dissonance is when you have a conflict, when you have two different sides, humans tend to have to pick one side. And once they make that, it's like a pressure. It's a pressure that they can't hold both. So they pick one and then they start criticizing the other side and saying how awful of a choice. And then they grandiose their own side psychologically to justify. I also recommend in here, there wasn't any reading on this. It's not part of the triangulation, but me personally, I recommend maybe hit this home. The love of all life is to be grateful, to be grateful for all the experiences. Why? Because this is going to hone us. This is going to make us better people, sharper swords, higher in evolving, better mental acuity when it's all said and done. And don't forget on the 30th about this 30th in the evening where Mercury is Cazimi. You've got a big opportunity for insight, nurturing, protective, Cancer type insight. All right. And enjoy your Venus direct. But there's still 5 planets retrograde. It doesn't have to be oppression this week. It does matter about your perception, but no escaping. Don't escape mentally. Don't escape emotionally. Don't escape spiritually. Be embedded in it. We can transcend above it with that air trine and look at it and observe it. We don't have to be a part of it. If you are suffering, try to move into gratitude. Gratitude is a choice, not an emotion. And you can choose to be grateful for anything. So I think that's enough. If I missed anything, please comment below. Thanks for your likes and shares. And please tell somebody about this CIRF reporting if you found this valuable. With that, have a great week. We'll see you next. Don't miss next time. That's about our lunar eclipse on July 4th for most of us. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here.